The locksmith asks if I'm sure. His hand rests on the brass knob like it's a wrist he's learned to check for a pulse. Rain needles the porch roof. I'm sure, I say, and my voice doesn't wobble the way I feared it might. He nods, listens with one ear to the old wood as if the door is telling him a story, then sets his pick. The hallway smells like lemon oil and grief. 2 weeks ago, we buried my mother-in-law in a suit she'd ironed the week before she fell. 2 weeks ago, casseroles crowded my counters, and people told me I was so strong. I put their Tupperware in a tidy stack and cried into a dish towel. I am not strong. I am just practiced. The house is mine now. That was the will, one sentence at the bottom like an afterthought. To Joan, who kept us fed. I read it 3 times before I believed it. A kindness, I thought then. A second chance, I thought later. But this door, the only locked door in a house of sticky latches and polite hinges, has been humming in my chest since the day the real estate attorney handed me the keys. Every house has a secret, he said, half charmed by his own line. On the other side of this one lies whatever kept my mother-in-law awake for 30 years, and maybe the reason she poured me tea without ever fully looking at me. The pick scratches. The lock yields with a small surrendering click that lands in my stomach. The locksmith steps back, a gentleman, and I push. The room breathes out a cold breath, window cracked, salt air pressing through like a patient witness. It's not big. Just a study, the old kind, desk with legs like herons and a lamp shaped like a green bell. But the walls are the thing, shelves from floor to ceiling, and on them, notebooks, every one labeled with a month and a year in a hand I know from recipe cards and birthday checks. I step in. The rain keeps time. Do you need me to stay? The locksmith asks. I'll be okay, I say. I'm not. He leaves, careful with the door as if it could feel. I pull a notebook at random, June 1997, and the room tilts a degree. The summer we bought our first minivan. The summer I told Mark we couldn't afford the leather seats, and he rolled his eyes but agreed. The summer I started carrying a small notebook in my purse to track prices, a practice I kept for 20 years. I flip it open. The first entry is neat, exact, the way she used to fold shirts. June 3rd, spoke with Nora. She says she saw Mark at Harbor Lane with a brunette, not Joan. She thought it was harmless. I explained why harmless things are the ones that take root. I sit down because my legs have turned into promises no one kept. I flip pages. June 6th, called Mark. He deflected, said work dinner. I reminded him of Joan's parents visiting. He said I was making something out of nothing. June 14th, saw the same woman, red coat, he is too careless. June 20th, father says it's not my business. I think it is, if it breaks a home. The handwriting goes on for pages, precise as stitches in a hem no one will see. I pull another journal from another year, December 2004, the year my daughter had pneumonia. I read, he promised to end it before Christmas. He will not. I brought Joan soup and kept my mouth shut because he cried in the kitchen and said I'd ruin everything. My mouth tastes like pennies. My marriage collapses in reverse, year by recorded year. Not a sudden wall falling, but bricks quietly removed at night while I slept. I feel ridiculous, a woman in a cautionary tale, the one who didn't know. But I did know, in the way a body knows when a storm is coming. I just filed it under too much, because there were lunches to pack and a mortgage to keep nervous. I pull a third one, March 2011. Confronted him again, he called me dramatic. I told him drama is what men call the truth when they don't like how it sounds. I stop. That line sounds like a woman who could be my friend. It sounds like someone who held a secret, not to protect a son, but to hold a family together with both hands. I always thought she didn't like me. Maybe what she didn't like was the lie she kept like a hot coal, passing it from palm to palm so she wouldn't drop it and burn the house down. I stand and pull more. The shelves are chronological, a highway of ink. Years where I remember birthdays and school plays, and the time my youngest cracked his chin on the coffee table and bled through 2 towels. In those pages, The journals hum with names and restaurant receipts, car models and miles driven out of the way to avoid being seen. There's a system here. Dates and descriptions, sometimes notes in the margins. Call me if he breaks her heart, written beside a woman's name. The women are not cartoon villains. Some of them brought pies to the block party. One taught swim lessons at the Y. One wrote me a Christmas card, "Your strength inspires me," loops cheerful as confetti. My hands shake. I'm 48 years old, and my life just developed a second spine I didn't ask for. I think of the morning we were late for my mother-in-law's birthday brunch, Mark snapping at me in the car because I'd packed the wrong sweater for the baby, and how she hugged me at the door and whispered, "You're doing great," while looking at my hair, not my eyes. She knew. They all knew. Or, more honestly, they knew something and decided silence was the lint that kept the family sweater from unraveling. The rain strengthens. Somewhere, a gutter overflows in a voice I understand. I set the journals on the desk in a neat upright pile, because neatness feels like the last habit I own. I look for my name in the pages and find it not often, but always paired with verbs like endure and forgive. My husband's name blooms in every month like a bruise that never fully fades. There are receipts paperclipped to certain entries. Jewelry, hotel bars, a bouquet of lilies charged the week our son broke his collarbone. On the back of one receipt, she wrote, "If you read this, you are ready." I hold that little square of paper like it's a photograph of my real life, taken from an angle I've never stood in before. On the shelf above the desk sits a shoebox labeled, "Letters I Didn't Send." Inside are drafts to me. "Dear Joan, I want to tell you the truth without setting fire to what you've already built. Dear Joan, there is a kind of mercy that looks like silence. Dear Joan, a woman who is lied to for this long becomes a weather system. I don't know how to hold you. I want to be angry with her. I want to march into the rain and curse a woman who made me tea and watched me drown politely. But I remember her hands on the day of my wedding, not the big day, the small private one when my mother forgot her shoes and we laughed. How my mother-in-law pinned a stray curl behind my ear and said, "Welcome," in a voice with 10 versions tucked inside it. Maybe this room is the version that loved me best. My phone buzzes on the desk with a text from Mark's sister. "How's the house? Need help going through things?" I stare at the screen until the words smear. What do I say? I could send a picture of the journals, stacked like an argument too heavy to lift. I could ask, "How long did you know?" But questions have their own weather, and I am not ready for hail. Instead I type, "I'm okay, it's raining." She writes back a heart, then, "Call if you want." I don't call. I close the window, and the room warms a degree. The green lamp glows when I turn it on, and the light pools on the desk like a quiet lake. I choose the first journal again, June 1997, and set it on the center like a plate. If the story of my marriage lives here, then I will read it the way I read bedtime stories to my children, all the way through, no skimming, even the scary parts, because the truth deserves not to be rushed. I am not a detective. I am a woman who made dinners, and paid copays, and kept everyone's birthdays in a drawer. But I can be a student. I can learn the language of what was happening 3 feet to my left while I stirred soup. Rain hushes the roof. My breathing matches it, in and out like I'm pushing. I open to the first page and press my palm flat on the ink. "Okay," I say to a room full of years, "okay." And in that soft word, there's a hinge. A small swing toward a version of myself I have not yet met. I keep reading, knowing that when the last page turns, I will have to decide whether to keep this thunder to myself or carry it into the family like a weather report pinned to the fridge. For now, I let the rain say what I can't. For now, I listen. I turn the page, ready to follow the entries to the first moment I can't pretend I didn't see. The second journal I open is October 2009. Our 15th anniversary. The cover is a faded marigold. Inside, the month is a neat ledger of dinners and errands, and a week where her handwriting turns a shade tighter. I skim. October 10th, confirming reservation at the Lantern for Joan and Mark. Gave the host the cake, wrote, keep it simple. October 12th, he says emergency. I can smell the lie on the phone like gasoline. October 13th, I asked him to go home to his wife. He said, later. I wanted to drop every plate in the kitchen. My eye catches on an envelope paper-clipped to a page. On the flap in her fine patient hand, do not open unless you must. My hands decide I must. I slide out a photograph. It's the table at the Lantern, candles sweating, our cake in the background, the one with little sugar violets I had asked them to keep tasteful because money was shallow that month. The chairs are empty. The host's crooked tie is in the corner of the frame. On the back, she's written, 7:48 p.m., they did not arrive. I remember. Of course I do. That night is a splinter I learned to live around. He called at 6:53, said there was a client, a crisis, a necessity only he could meet. I waited at the restaurant until the ice in my water glass shrugged into slush. The waiter brought me bread and a kind look I couldn't catch. I took the cake home unopened and cut it at the counter with the kids, laughing like a woman who could wait one more hour. Now I see my mother-in-law's notes march through that night. October 13th, 9:30 p.m., drove past Harbor Lane, his car at Seaview Inn, took the picture. I am shaking. There's a second photo, darker, grainy. His license plate, the carved wooden sign of the motel, a gull cut into the board like a warning. She dated it and beneath wrote, do I save a marriage with silence or save Joan with truth? I press the picture to the desk, as if I can fuse it to the wood. Rain smudges the window. I feel a ridiculous urge to go ice the cake 15 years late. Instead, I flip pages, ravenous and nauseated, a twin hunger. October 14th, he stopped by, said not to meddle, said Joan understands how these things are. I looked at him and thought about how our family makes rooms that women have to learn to breathe in. There are other months where the humiliations have nicknames. Business dinners, circled. Late practice boxed. Sister cover, underlined. I realized the family had a choreography. When he needed an alibi, his sister would call me and complain about a neighbor, so she had me on the phone at the right time. His father would invite him to the garage to fix the mower, buying him the respectable grease of mail errands. His mother baked me lemon squares and told me to rest. The sweetness was a bandage for a wound I didn't know was there. I slide my finger down another page. A list of words. Cinnamon, swim team pickup. Blueberries, watch the kids. Parade, host her for dinner. Breeze text, we miss you. They had a code. A family pantry of false flavors. I say the words out loud in the empty room, and they taste like something expired. Cinnamon. Blueberries. Parade. Breeze. Memories flicker into new shapes. That call where his sister talked for 20 minutes about the neighbor's barking dog was a parade. The time his mother pressed a grocery bag into my hands and said, I'll get the kids from practice, go lie down, was blueberries. I had been a good soldier in a quiet war. I had set the table for battles I never saw. A journal from May 2015 detours into my body. Joan looks thin. I asked if she's hungry. She said she's fine. She's not fine. I turn the page, and there's a grocery receipt paper clipped at the top. Seaview Inn again. 2 drinks, mussels, a key. She has scrawled, 5:15 p.m. He said he's picking up our grandchild. I remember that afternoon. I told him the permission slip was on the fridge. He kissed my head and said, got it. A kiss can be a placeholder. Or a mercy. Or a theft. I try to hate her for not telling me. I try on the feeling like a sweater that doesn't quite fit. It slides off. What sits instead is that hot coal again, the sense of what she held. There's a letter draft in the shoebox from that same May. Dear Joan, I went to the motel today. I sat in the parking lot with my pie for the church sale on my lap, and I thought about walking in. I thought about the look you would have on your face if I told you. The way a window breaks in slow motion. I didn't do it. I'm sorry. I don't know which kind of sorry. I just know you are my daughter, whether or not I have the right. I can't tell if I want to cry or tell her she did the best she could inside a house where the air was thin. I choose neither. I choose to stand. I choose to do something small and precise. I take out my old thin notebook, the one I used to track prices at Wakefield Market, and I title a page, "What is True?" Beneath it, I write, "He cheated. They knew. They helped. I survived." 4 lines. My hand shakes, but the letters are steady. I do not write, "I forgive them." Not yet. Forgiveness is a room with a strict fire code, and only so many people can fit at a time. My phone lights up again with a text from his sister. "Thought of you when it started raining. Mom always said rain cleans a house better than brooms." I stare at the screen until the words look like they belong to a language I don't speak. Then I scroll up. Old threads flower with their codes. Cinnamon? Parade smiley face. Breeze breeze. There is a 3-year-old message from the week of our 20th anniversary. A thread where they all coordinate bringing me little gifts. A candle, a scarf, a plant. A chorus so sweet it smothers. A photo pops up from that week. Me at the table, hands in a dish towel, smiling a little tired, a little proud. The caption, "We take care of our own." I wonder, briefly, if that includes me. I go to the kitchen. The house has remembered where everything sleeps. Tea lives in the second drawer. The kettle wheezes. I stand at the sink, watching the rain play the fence rails like a xylophone. When the water boils, I pour and let the steam tell my face I am here. The cup warms my hand. It's such a small mercy heat. Back in the study, I slide the October 2009 journal toward me, and, beside it, the photograph of the empty table. I have lived with that absence for 15 years. I decide to end it. I open my laptop and search for the lantern's email. The restaurant is still there. New owners, same address. I type a short note. Hello. On October 13, 2009, there was a reservation for 2 at 7:30 p.m. The couple did not arrive. I am the woman who sat there waiting. Would your records show if someone called to cancel? Thank you either way. I don't know why I write. It's a small question in a sea of answers I didn't ask for. Maybe I want the dignity of data. Maybe I want a stranger to confirm that night was real. I hit send. The room waits with me, lamp humming, journals resting like animals finally allowed to sleep. Minutes later, a reply surprises me. Dear Joan, we do keep old logs in a ledger. We checked. No cancellation was logged. The table was held and comped. The server notes say, guest alone, extra bread, we're sorry. I close my eyes. Extra bread. A kindness folded inside a humiliation. It matters to me that someone wrote it down. I forward the email to no one. I print it and tuck it into October 2009 like a stamped letter, finally mailed. When the printer stops, the silence spreads, a clean sheet. My phone rings. His sister again. I stare at the name until it stops. There is a voicemail icon, small and insistent. I press play. Hey, she says, soft, I keep thinking about Mom's study. There are some boxes in there you probably don't need. I can come by and help you toss. Boxes. The word lands like a broom trying to sweep up rain. I look at the journals. I look at the code words. I look at my little list of truth. I press delete. I am not ready to hear her version. I am not ready to hand over the archive of the life I lived inside of without consent. I stand again and open the window an inch. The air comes in new. Somewhere a gull argues with the wind. I'm aware of a trembling at the base of me, a shifting. Like floorboards, settling after a heavy piece of furniture has been moved. I put my palm on the journals, not to bless them and not to curse them, but to say through skin, I see you. I pick up the marigold journal, flip to the last page, and write in the corner in my smaller, darker hand. Found by Joan, October now. It feels like naming myself present. In the hallway, the old clock chimes the hour. The sound is gentle, not scolding. I check the kettle, turn off the stove, and carry the cup back with both hands like a thing I intend to keep. The rain steadies. I breathe. I am not a secret. I am the one who stayed. And now I am the one who knows. I sit, pen hovering over what is true, ready to add a line that will carry me into what I have to do next. Morning loosens from the rain like thread from a sleeve. I sleep in the small bedroom at the back of the house and wake to the clock's soft throat clearing. The journals are a silhouette in the doorway of my mind. My feet find the floor. My knees remind me I have carried children up and down stairs for 20 years. I make coffee in the kitchen the way she taught me. 2 heaping, 1 level, water like a patient tide. Steam fogs the window, and when I wipe it with my wrist, I can see the driveway shining, and the hydrangeas bowed like they're praying in the wrong direction. Today I will not pretend I don't know what I know. That sentence stands beside me like a friend who doesn't hug, only nods. I carry my cup to the study. The room remembers me. The green lamp flicks on. I lay out the work like a nurse. Notebooks stacked by decade. A legal pad from the desk, with its first page filigreed by her grocery lists. I turn to a clean sheet. I write again, what is true? Underneath I add numbers, slowly, like steps on a staircase I want to hold. Make copies. Lock originals. Tell no one until I choose the way. I am surprised by the steadiness of these words. Reckoning is not a storm. It is a kind of housekeeping. I fetch boxes from the hall closet, the ones labeled wrapping paper, in her tidy hand. There's a roll of snowmen tucked inside, in case anyone needs the illusion that time is circular. I set the boxes aside and clear a lower shelf. I gather the shoebox of letters. I tuck the photographs into a Ziploc because air has its own kind of hunger. Then I do the thing that decides whether I will live at the mercy of other people's versions. I take out my phone and start a slow, careful gallery. 1 page at a time. Dates. Receipts. Codes. Not everything. Just enough to hold the shape of the truth if someone tries to erase its outline. I keep my hand steady, my breath low. When I pause, I rest my palm on the desk to remind my body there is a surface. Half an hour becomes an hour. The rain lets up, leaves ticking with leftover water. I label the album, Study. Then I add a second name so I cannot lie to myself later. Proof. I think of the word proof the way it lives in baking. Yeast making the dough rise. Air transforming matter into something you can tear with your hands. I take 2 journals I have not read yet and slide them into the bottom drawer. I lock it with the small brass key I found in the tea tin. I slip the key onto a chain and place it around my neck. The metal is cool against my throat. The clock answers with a small prideful sound. I clean. Not to erase her. To witness her. I dust the frames on the walls, pictures of the family at graduations, and on beaches, holding paper cones of fries we pretended were meals. I pause at one photo of me and her kneeling in the garden, both of us in the kind of jeans you keep for kneeling. We are laughing at something the camera forgot. I can smell the tomato vines. I can hear her saying, "Pinch the suckers, they look eager, they won't give you fruit." I whisper, "I know." And I think of all the eager things in my life that gave me leaves and no tomatoes. I make a sandwich with the old mustard from the back of the shelf and a tomato that tastes like a memory that has been in a refrigerator too long. I pack a small bag because motion seems holy. Journal. Wallet. Thin notebook. Phone. I slide on my raincoat and leave the house with its green lamp keeping watch. The air has that rinsed look it gets after a long, honest cry. I drive to the bank where we opened our first joint account. The woman at the desk is younger than my daughter, and her name tag says Maya, with a smiley face sticker trying to soften the word manager. Safe deposit box, I say. She nods. Her voice is kind without pretending she knows my story. Paperwork moves like a small river between us. Down in the vault, I choose a box that hums to me, something at waist height, reachable without a stretch. I place the journal, the photos, and the printed email into the metal belly. It looks like I'm feeding a patient who cannot eat on her own. Do you need anything else? Maya asks when I surface. No, I say, yes. She waits. Could you print me the last 5 years of statements for our account ending in 1182? Of course. When she slides the stack across, I feel a familiar pulsing at my temple. Numbers bring me calm. Numbers say what people won't. I thank her. I go to the parking lot and sit for a moment, the stack in my lap, like a strange child I have agreed to carry. I scan for dates that rhyme with the journal's notes. There. Cash withdrawals at 5:12 p.m. on days when I know he told me he was with his father, working on the mower. A hotel in the next town with the sort of name that tries too hard to be a secret, Shoreline Suites. An uptick in charges at a florist 2 towns over, lilies he never brought to my kitchen. I film the stack with my phone, slowly, names and amounts. Proof never asks me to raise my voice. It asks me to be thorough. I feel the smallest earning of breath, like the first time a baby sleeps through the night and you wake anyway, astonished at the quiet survival happening without you. I drive to the copy shop on Cedar Street. The bell on the door is indecisive and rings twice. A woman named Alma shows me how to feed the journal into the flatbed without breaking the spine. She does not look at what I copy. She does not ask why. She says, "Do you want color?" Sometimes color reads truer. I say yes. I leave with 2 thin binders, unassuming, blue, the color of school supplies and forgiveness petitions. Back at the house, I tuck the binders into my bag and set the originals back in the box at the bank, my neck a little lighter without the weight of paper. I walk the path behind the house where the sea keeps practicing the same sentence until it gets it right. The air tastes like a key that's been in someone's hand too long. I sit on the bench we bought at a yard sale in 2002. There's a scratch on the arm where our oldest carved his initial with a butter knife over corn on the cob in July. I ask myself the question I have avoided since I opened the first journal. What do you want? Want is a dangerous word in a family like ours. Want gets called selfish. Want gets called ungrateful. Want gets hung in the closet and replaced with, "What do you need?" which always turns out to be other people's comfort. I let the sea talk while I try to answer. I want my own voice to sound like mine again. I want quiet that isn't made of fear. I want my children to know what healthy air feels like. I want not to answer to the pretense that this never happened. I want to stop rehearsing forgiving while I am still being injured. The list is small and large. I add one more want, tentative, like a plant I'm not sure will take root. I want to live without the code words. On the way back, the phone buzzes. A text from Mark. Can I swing by the house to grab the drill? Need it for a thing at Dan's. I stare at the sentence like it's a pebble, pretending to be a door. No greeting. No question mark after my name. Just can I swing by? The old me would have said of course, left it on the porch, said I'm here if you need anything. The me with a key against her skin says something else. I type, no, not today, I'll let you know when it's a good time. My thumb hovers over send. I send. A minute later, the gray dots perform their soft little dance. Then, what's going on? I feel a smile that doesn't show teeth. I write cleaning. It is not a lie. It is not enough. But it is the size of a step my feet can carry. I drop my shoulders. The bench holds me like it means it. On the porch, I take off my shoes like a person who has been out in the world, gathering something heavy and ordinary. I enter the study and the green lamp brightens by a degree, as if light obeys will. I print a page from my thin notebook and tape it inside the desk drawer. It says house rules. No one enters this room without me. If you know something, you say it to my face. Rain counts as prayer. I stand there and let the rules spread like the smell of a clean floor. I call a therapist whose card has sat in my wallet so long the edges are soft. I leave a message that is just my name and the word Tuesday. I call a lawyer whose website lists a tidy page about marital misconduct and asset protection with an unromantic font. I ask about consultations. I do not make vows. I make appointments. The difference feels like oxygen. Before I close the window for the night, I look down at the hydrangeas. They're blue calmer now that the rain has told them the truth. I whisper, we're okay, and the leaves don't answer, but they look like they could. I switch off the lamp and feel the room keep glowing inside me. In the dark, I understand there will be pushback, a choreography unlearned, a chorus that can't find the key. I am ready to hear the music of it, and not dance. I pick up my phone and write one more line under what is true, a line I did not think I would be able to write this soon. I write, I get to decide who I am in this family now. And as I set down the pen, I know that sentence will ask for proof, and that tomorrow will deliver the first test. They do not knock. I hear the car doors before the bell, two solid thunks like someone closing two chapters without reading them. By the time I reach the hallway, they are framed in the glass, his sister with her rain hood up, his father with a plastic bin that once held Christmas lights. There is a key in her hand. She lifts it with a small triumph, then hesitates when she notices the new deadbolt. I open the door halfway and stand where the house rules can see me. Hi, she says, voice sugar-dusted. We thought we'd help, rain's easing. Behind her, the hydrangeas nod like they are trying not to stare. I have it, I say. She peeks over my shoulder as if the word I is a new piece of furniture she doesn't recognize. His father clears his throat in a way that expects compliance. Your mother-in-law would want us to get those boxes out, he says. We don't need to bother you. He lifts the bin, and the rainwater slides off the lid and onto the doormat like a small warning. You can leave the bin, I say. We'll be quick, she says. Blueberries? She drops the word without thinking, a reflex, the way some people say bless you after a sneeze. It lands between us and starts to smell. I let the silence show her what she said. She blushes and looks at the bin like it has betrayed her. We're not doing that, I say softly. What? His father asks. Codes, I say, choreographies, quiet wars, not anymore. He gives me a look reserved for teenagers and women who have just learned a new word and use it too often. Joan, he says, we're family. I know, I say, that's why I locked the door. The old part of me that likes to offer tea twitches. I keep my hands at my sides like I'm carrying a tray you can't see. She tries another route. Mark needs his drill, she says. He says you wouldn't let him come by. I'll let him know a time that works, I say. Since when do you set times? She laughs, but the laugh is glass. Since now. Her eyes flick past me down the hall to the study. She leans, as if the room is an animal she can coax. We'll just take the boxes, she says, softer. They're not yours, I say. Her face performs surprise on cue, then a little hurt for flavor. We're trying to help you, she says. Mom kept things too long, you know how she was, sentimental, we thought. I know what's inside, I say. She drops the act then, a muscle tired of holding a pose. Joan, she says, those were private, she didn't mean for anyone. There are letters addressed to me, I say. There are photographs of my life. There are receipts from the motel where your brother said he was picking up your niece from practice. Her mouth closes like a curtain. His father shifts, the bin lid squeaking. Careful, I say, and I mean the bin and the moment and the way words spill. He lifts his chin. Your mother-in-law was not well, he says. She wrote things down to calm herself. You know how anxious she got. It doesn't mean. Please don't rewrite the woman you buried 2 weeks ago. I say, she was meticulous. She ran the farm ledger for 20 years. She balanced your business books when you forgot decimal points. He snorts at decimal points, like I have been listening in on men's conversations. Whatever she wrote was her burden, he says, not yours to wave around. From the kitchen, the clock clears its throat again. I stand a little straighter. No one is waving anything, I say. It's raining. They look at the sky as if it might back me up. His sister tries again. You're misinterpreting, she says. Mom was dramatic sometimes. She made lists about everything, you know. I have a copy of an email from the Lantern, I say. No cancellation. Server noted I was alone. Extra bread. October 2009. She flinches like a fish that almost remembers it once had gills. Why would you dig up pain? She says, and the pivot is smooth as a practice turn in a living room dance. Because I've been tripping over it for 20 years, I say. I'd like to know its shape. His father narrows his eyes. Are you threatening us with her journals? He asks, incredulity like spice. No, I say. I'm telling you I've read enough to know what has been happening in my house. I've made copies. The originals are safe. I don't need anything from you except space. Copies, his sister repeats, as if the word is an accusation. That's smart, his father says, and his approval is more frightening than his judgment. I feel the smallest tremor in my hand and clasp it with the other like a secret. He steps toward the threshold. Let us in, he says. We'll sort what needs to be burned. I take one small step back, and the angle of it is gorge. No, I say. The word is quiet. It has weight. He blinks. He isn't used to women giving him full sentences that begin with, no. Who do you think you are? He asks. And there it is, the family refrain, the song that kept me small enough to fit into the silences. I'm the person on the deed, I say. I'm the person who washed your wife's dishes when she couldn't stand long. I'm the person the will names. I'm the person who slept with your son, believing I was not sleeping with an entire system. His sister winces at slept, like I've broken a vase by naming the room it lives in. She brings out the big guns, concern. Joan, she says, voice syrup, you're not thinking clearly, this is grief, you shouldn't make decisions right now. I agree, I say, that's why I'm not making any decisions. I'm reading. I lift the chain at my neck, the key gleaming like an argument that doesn't need words. Her face changes. It is the expression you make when you realize the person you're trying to manage has rehearsed your lines and decided to ad-lib. This isn't you, she says, a last attempt to summon the old choreography. It is, I say, you didn't know me. His father adjusts his hat like an endorsement from himself. Will involve counsel, he says, like he's telling me what the weather will do. Okay, I say. I have a consultation on Wednesday at 10. The look they exchange is the kind people make in church when someone sits in a pew that isn't theirs. His sister's phone vibrates and she glances down. Her mouth tightens. Mark is on his way, she says. He says he needs to talk to you. I'm not receiving, I say. You can't keep him from his mother's house, his father says. It isn't his mother's house, I say, it's mine. He holds my gaze for a long moment, and I watch the understanding move through him like weather across water. First a ripple, then a change in the wind's direction. When he speaks again, his voice is lower. What do you want? He asks. He means it as a challenge, but it sounds like a question I have earned the right to answer. Respect, I say. Distance, no more codes, and when I am ready, a conversation that doesn't require me to perform your innocence. His sister shakes her head, a small circle of denial. We can't just. You can leave, I say, as gently as I would tell a child it is bedtime. I open the door the rest of the way, but I do not step aside. They stand there, deciding whether to push past me or obey gravity. Gravity wins. They retreat down the steps. At the bottom, his sister looks up. Mom didn't mean to hurt you, she says. The sentence is a piece of furniture no one knows where to put. I know, I say, and what happens in me is not forgiveness, not yet. It is alignment. They get in the car. The doors make their two soft thunks. Before they pull away, his father rolls down the window. "Joan," he says, "where did you put the journals?" I could lie. I could call him by one of his codes. I say, "Safe," and shut the door. Inside, the rain starts again, a brief patter like applause from a room with good taste and few seats. I walk to the study. I check the window, the drawers, the green lamp that has become a lighthouse for shore I didn't know I was allowed to see. My phone lights with a message from an unknown number. "I'm outside," it says. "Mark." My body forgets how to breathe for one beat, then remembers, stubborn. I write back, "Not today." The 3 gray dots appear and hold, like someone trying to keep their anger from spilling. They vanish. I slide the chain across the door. I stand in the hallway and feel the floor under my feet vote in my favor. The hydrangeas nod in a way that feels like an old woman's blessing. I pick up my thin notebook and add a new line under "What is true" with a hand that has steadied. I write, "Boundaries are love with a spine." Then I exhale, because the next thing I have to do will require me to speak without rage and without apology, and I want my voice to arrive clean. Liberation, I learn, is not a banner. It's a to-do list written in a steady hand. It's a voice that doesn't rise. It's a lock changed because you can. I start with keys, a new deadbolt, a new chain. The locksmith from the first day remembers my face. He does not make small talk, quote. I do. The click is a small ceremony. Next, I drive to the phone store where the polite boy in a polo helps me separate our plan. He asks, "I want to keep my name," I say, then smile because the joke lands somewhere between us and does not need to be explained. He prints a receipt. It is longer than our vows were. At home, I make a new email that is only mine. A new password that is a sentence my body believes. I write it on paper and tuck it under the green lamp like a seed. I sit at the kitchen table, the one dented where a child once banged a spoon too hard, and write 3 letters. One to Mark. One to his family, one to my children. They are not the same letter. The letter to Mark is 4 paragraphs, short, declarative, no corners for him to hide in. Quote, I give him 2 choices for mediators, my therapist's recommended names, and 3 windows of time. I tell him I will be staying at the house and that his belongings will be available by appointment. Quote, the letter to his family is a page, no poetry. I list the codes I found. I list the dates. I list my boundaries and the consequence for breaching them. Consequences is a word I avoided for years, as if it might bite. It doesn't bite. It holds. Quote, I put a period at the end and feel, for the first time in a long time, like the adult in the room. The letter to my children is a different animal. It refuses to be trained. I start 3 times. I end up writing it by hand because ink forces me to move at the speed of care. I tell them I have learned things. I tell them these things are between their father and me, but that they touch the air we all share. I tell them they can ask me anything, now or in 5 years. I tell them I am okay, and I do not leave it at that. I describe what okay looks like. A green lamp, a bench by the sea, a sandwich made on purpose. I tell them that love without honesty is a house with a slow leak. You can live in it. You will get used to the smell. But one day the floor gives way and you will call it an accident. It won't be. I tell them I am fixing the roof. I do not malign their father. I do not clean him up. I leave space in the words for them to breathe. I seal the letters. I place them in an envelope pile like tiny boats that will have to learn how to sail. Liberation continues. I scan the calendar on the fridge. Dental, oil change, a birthday I will miss if I don't tie a string around my finger. I add 2 appointments in careful letters. M. The attorney's office sits in an old brick building that smells like old decisions and lemon cleaner. He is a woman, mid-50s, glasses that make her look like she has never missed a decimal. She shakes my hand longer than a man would. Quote, we sit. She asks for the facts and I give them. No embroidery, journals, photos, codes, bank statements humming in particular places. She takes notes with a pen that doesn't scratch. She asks, and I like her because she puts the verb in my mouth. Clarity, I say, protection, dignity, quote. We'll start with a separation agreement, she says. We'll freeze what needs freezing. We'll outline parenting, even though your children are grown. It helps set tone. We'll document the pattern. You won't have to tell this story 13 times to 13 people. Quote. I nod. I feel seen in a way that doesn't require me to be a spectacle. Quote. It's mine, I say. Quote. Her eyes meet mine and hold. There will be pressure, she says. Quote. I smile. Perfection has been my leash for so long. I plan to be adequate, I say, and we both laugh in a way that unclenches something. We make a plan, documents, a temporary support request, a formally worded request for therapy receipts to be honored, a note about the journals described without drama. When I leave, I carry a folder with my name on the tab. My name looks less lonely than it used to. On Tuesday, I sit on the green couch of a woman who will hear my mess and not try to fold it into origami birds. She wears soft shoes. She pours water into a glass like it might overhear us. I tell her everything. I cry in 2 neat sections. She says, "You are naming what you have lived in. That's not vengeful." Quote. Cartography. A word that gives me a map to carry when the house feels like a maze built by other hands. We talk about gaslighting, about why a code word like blueberries can shrink a woman's life to the size of a fruit, about how families keep rhythm with shame. She asks me to practice a sentence, quote, I say it to the air 3 times. I say it to the memory of my mother-in-law. The 3rd time, it lands like a feather on water and does not sink. On Wednesday, I take 4 contractor bags to the bedroom closet and lay them on the floor. 1 for donation, 1 for consignment, 1 for trash, quote. I sort, not like a woman punished, but like a woman deciding how she wants to look when she goes to the store alone on a Sunday and picks a pear and doesn't apologize to anyone for eating the soft half first. I keep the sweater my mother-in-law gave me the year we all pretended nothing was wrong. I keep it because warmth is not guilty. I set aside the dress I wore to our 20th anniversary dinner, the one they all floated around with gifts and compliments while I tushed pasta around and waited for the part where he looked only at me. I place that dress in the donation bag. I whisper, "Go be loved by someone else," and the ridiculousness saves me. Liberation visits the pantry. I throw out anything expired, packets of sauce that promise to make a meal feel like someone else's life. I line the shelves with jars I will actually use. Beans, rice, tea, the boredom of ingredients that make solidity. In the afternoon, I sit with my children. We don't do it at the house. We go to the little bakery near the library where the tables are small and the chairs are honest. I hand them the letter and wait. They read. My oldest clears his throat the way the hallway clock does. My middle looks at her hands like they've just told her a secret. My youngest cries without fuss. I'm sorry, I say. Don't, my daughter says, and her voice has a line down the center, fragile and strong. We suspected, my oldest says. What? We were kids, my youngest adds, and he says it like a confession and a defense. They ask what I need. I tell them. They ask what happens next. I tell them the plan, small and incremental. They ask if I hate their father. I tell them the truth I have. No, I say. I hate what he chose. I hate what we all lifted so he wouldn't have to feel its weight. I hate the codes. I don't hate your father, quote. They nod. 3 different nods, variations on a new language we're all learning. My daughter reaches across the table and holds my hand. Her fingers are warm and strong and unashamed. After they leave, I sit for a minute longer and let the quiet arrange me, quote. Extra bread, I say, and we both smile like people who've agreed to a code that heals. In the evening, I write one last letter. To my mother-in-law, I don't address an envelope, quote. I tell her the study is safe. I tell her I found the draft where she wrote that a woman lied to become's weather. I tell her I am learning to be a climate that grows things. I tell her I wish she had told me. I tell her I understand why she didn't. I tell her I forgive the piece of her that held his secret like a hot coal and never put it down. I tell her not to worry. I will put it down. I fold the letter and place it in the shoebox with the others. I switch off the green lamp and the room stays lit inside me. Liberation is not fireworks. It's a switch you had your hand on the whole time. It's a bench, a folder with your name on it, a deadbolt that obeys your decision, a sentence you can say 3 times without apologizing. When I go to bed, the rain starts again, lighter, like someone washing a single plate at the sink. I sleep. I do not dream in codes. In the morning, I will sit in a room with Mark and a mediator, and I will say the first sentences of the rest of my life without asking for anyone's permission to use my own voice. The mediator's office smells like oranges and a printer that has been working since morning. A small fountain in the corner tries to convince everyone to breathe. I sit in a chair with arms. Mark sits in a chair without them. It's ridiculous and perfect. The mediator is a woman who looks like she organizes her spices. She greets us by our names without adding softness where it doesn't belong. Thank you for coming, she says. I'm here to help you hear and be heard. We will keep to time. Mark glances at me and then at the window, where a thin rain makes a temporary veil. His face is the same face I have known in every decade. Only my eyes have changed. I fold my hands in my lap. I have brought no binders, no photos. Proof belongs to the legal folder and the safe deposit box. Today belongs to clarity. The mediator asks for opening statements. Mark starts. I made mistakes, he says, and the word mistakes flutters around the room trying to find purchase. I love our family, he adds, as if love were an umbrella big enough to cover what happened underneath it. He says, I was under a lot of pressure. He says, my mother. He stops. We all hear it. The mediator nods once. I wait for the old ache. It doesn't come. There is a steadier thing instead, the way a wall feels after you've learned it doesn't move. When it's my turn, I speak slowly, as if I'm placing stones where I mean to walk. I lived in a marriage with you, I say. You broke it. I am done performing forgiveness while the harm continues. I am not here to bargain for my dignity. I feel my throat want to harden. I drink water. I keep going. I am here to set terms that protect the person I am becoming. The mediator looks at us both. She establishes agreements like a metronome setting tempo. We will not interrupt. We will not characterize. We will keep sentences in the first person. Mark tries a story about a time he was lonely in our house. He tells it like a man hoping a narrative can be a rope out of a hole he dug. I let the rope drop. I tell a story too. October 13th, 2009. A table. Extra bread. I do not say motel. I do not say license plate. I say, I waited until the ice melted, and then I took the cake home and cut it with the kids. Mark looks like he might be sick. The mediator lets the silence be a teacher. Then she asks, what is needed now? She looks at me. Separation, I say. Structure. No contact except about logistics, and only in writing. Financial transparency. Therapy for the children if they want it, paid by you. I pause. The last one takes courage. And in acknowledgement, I add, not of love, of harm. Mark stares at the fountain. Water goes where water goes. He nods stiffly. I can do that, he whispers, and the whisper is not brave, but it is not a lie. The mediator writes. We move through assets like people learning a new language slowly enough to avoid false friends. We schedule the pickup of his belongings, 2 hours on Saturday, with a third party present. We agree on the car. We agree on the little sailboat he never learned to sail. We agree to disagree about what we will call what happened in front of other people. There will be many words. We will not share them. Then the mediator says, I'd like to offer a question you don't have to answer today. She waits. We nod. What do you each want for the story your children will tell about this family in 10 years? The question moves through me and finds a chair. I answer without asking permission from the part of me that likes to rehearse. I want them to say their mother told the truth without trying to ruin anyone, I say. I want them to say their father learned something and didn't punish anyone for his learning. I want them to say we built a calmer climate and lived in it with our windows open. Mark inhales sharply. When he speaks, his voice is small. I want them to still want to sit with me, he says. We are two people who made a family. We are two people who broke a marriage. Both things can be true at the same time. Insight sometimes arrives like a headline. Today it arrives like an old key I find in a pocket I forgot a coat had. It is this. I can let go without throwing. I can love what was good without keeping what was bad. Forgiveness is not absolution. Forgiveness is release. Release of the job of carrying his shame. Release of the fantasy that pain has to be paid back in the same currency. Release, which is not a door flung open. Release, which is a window cracked to let the air change. The mediator asks if either of us wants to say more. I look at Mark. I don't hate you, I say. I cannot trust you. I will not be cruel to you. I will not protect you from the consequences of what you did. He nods, a small broken movement. He says, I don't deserve your kindness. I shake my head. This isn't kindness, I say. It's hygiene. The mediator doesn't smile, but her eyes do something like recognition. We sign a temporary agreement. We schedule the next session. We stand. Mark hovers, the way a person does when they need a script and the page is blank. He extends his hand. I take it for 1 second. It is the hand I held when our youngest had a fever, and we took turns sleeping on the carpet. It is also the hand that held other women's faces. It is a hand. I let it go. Outside, the rain has thinned to a polite mist. I walk to the car with a lightness that makes no sense on paper. Halfway there, my phone buzzes. A voicemail from his sister. I don't listen in the lot. I drive to the sea. I sit on the bench and watch a gull make a series of terrible choices with grace. I listen to the water practicing until it gets the sentence right. I call his sister back. Her hello is bright and brittle. I keep my voice low. No more surprises, I say. No more codes. If you come, you text first. If you malign me to my children, we are done. If you need to talk about your grief, I will listen for 10 minutes. Silence. Then she says, small, I don't know how to be your sister without taking his side. I let that sit between us like a wet coat, carefully draped over a chair that might hold the weight. You don't have to take a side, I say. You have to tell the truth. I loved your mother, I add, and I know it is the most generous sentence I can offer today. She loved you, she says. I know, I say. We hang up without pretending anything is solved. I sit a while longer. The mist softens my hair and the edge I've been living on. I take out my thin notebook. I turn to what is true. I add the line I promised myself. Forgiveness is letting go of the outcome. And then, because truth grows in company, I write another. I can be loyal to myself and still be kind. On the way back, I stop at the florist 2 towns over. Not lilies. Lilies make rooms smell like apologies. I buy eucalyptus and 2 sunflowers that look like they learned optimism by watching the clock. At the house, I put them in a jar by the green lamp. The journals are where I left them. They do not need me to keep reading today. I carry the letter to my mother-in-law out to the hydrangeas. I kneel in the damp and tuck it into the soil under the bush we planted together the year she taught me to pinch suckers. I forgive you for the silence, I whisper. I forgive myself for surviving inside it. A breeze runs its hands through the leaves. Light changes in the room the way it does when a cloud moves and the house realizes it's been dim on purpose. The phone buzzes with a text from my oldest. Proud of you. 2 words. A bridge. I wash a single plate. I dry it and put it where it belongs. I do not check the window. I do not rehearse what I'll say when someone tries to open the door. I make tea. I sit. I breathe. And when I feel ready, I stand and turn toward the quiet that has been waiting all this time to meet me where I live. I don't open the study for 2 days. The house learns my new footsteps. I learn the way light moves from the front room to the kitchen, a slow migration like geese that don't care what month the calendar says. Morning is clean. Afternoon is forgiving. Evening asks better questions. I make a ritual of small things. Narrow slices of lemon in my water. Shoes by the door, heel to heel. The green lamp on at dusk and off when the clock clears its throat for the last time. On the second night, I carry a blanket to the back steps and sit where the hydrangeas cast little blue shadows, like notes no one taught me how to read when I was young. There is a quiet I used to call loneliness. It has another name. It is called space. I let it surround me the way the ocean surrounds a stone without argument. Sometimes I look toward the road and imagine a car pausing. I do not rehearse. Practice has its place. This isn't it. On the third morning, I unlock the study and enter. The journals wait with the patience of things that don't need me to perform for them. I choose one I haven't opened, August 2020. Late summer. The month we all pretended our worry was a shared hobby, not a climate. Her handwriting is tighter here, then looser, like waves under wind. She writes about masks and sourdough starters and the quiet ache behind everyone's eyes. She writes about me once. Joan stood in the yard and waved from the sidewalk. She brought soup and left it under the maple. I wanted to walk down the steps. I did not. Some days love looks like a fence. I sit with that. Some days love looks like a fence. Sometimes the kindest sentence starts with no. My thin notebook is where I left it, on the desk beneath the lamp. A little worn around the edges, like a person who has finally stopped pretending she is new. What is true, I read. I let the lines be. I add one. I write, I am allowed to outgrow a story that needed me small. The phone hums. A text from Mark arrives with the shape of an apology. It is careful and late. It is a man trying to say harm without saying harm. He uses the word profound. He uses the word regret. He does not ask for a reply. I do not send one. The reply is the shape of my life now. A boundary is a letter you write with your behavior. I file the text in a folder called Logistics and stand. I walk to the kitchen and take down the cast iron pan my mother-in-law swore would outlive us all. I cook eggs slowly with butter and attention the way she did, edges just set, yolks like coins I won't spend on anyone's approval. I toast bread. I put the plate on the table and sit down to eat like a person whose hunger is not a secret. Between bites, I notice something that I only could notice this week, in this house, at this table. I am not narrating myself to anyone. I am not turning my day into evidence of goodness or proof of utility. I am eating an egg. There are dishes to wash and a life to file and a chair that wobbles if you sit in it the arrogant way, which I guess is exactly why it wobbles. I choose another chair. At noon, clouds arrive like guests with good timing. I take the letter I wrote to her and didn't bury and read it again. I add a line. Thank you for leaving me your house, I write. You gave me a room where I could end the quiet war. Gratitude isn't a rewrite. It's a lens that doesn't blur. I fold the paper and put it in the shoebox with the drafts she didn't send, and I press the lid down like I'm tenderly closing someone's mouth after they've finally said it all. In the afternoon, I walk to the sea with no agenda. I count gulls like rosary beads for a religion in which the only prayer is breathing. There is a boy teaching himself to skim stones. Each throw is a thesis on failure and grace. His father stands a few feet away, hands in pockets, silent, present. I watch until the boy gets 3 skips in a row. He crows. His father claps once, a sound that makes a small dome of pride around them. Love, I think, is attention without management. I have given so much management. I am learning attention. On the way back, I stop at the grocery and buy things with names I can pronounce without wishing aloud. Potatoes, onions, salt. I buy a lemon because it makes water bright. At the register, the clerk asks, "Find everything okay?" I say yes, and mean it in a way that would have startled me last month. Evening again. The green lamp is obedient and warm. I open the window an inch. The study's paper smell is joined by the lane's wet earth and the neighbor's early soup. I sit at the desk and begin a letter to the me who waited at the lantern. It is not a rescue mission. It is a hand held across time without blame. You were not stupid, I write. You were faithful. You could not see everything because some things were being hidden. You did the best you could with the air you were given. You can do better now because the window is open. I sign it with my name, just my name, and it sits there, not lonely. I put the letter on the shelf with the journals, not because it belongs to her story, but because all our stories shared a kitchen and a holidays calendar and a drawer full of rubber bands. Then I think about the future. Not in pictures. In sentences. I will keep this house. I will fix the leak in the upstairs bath myself, and then call someone when I realize I cannot. I will host my children on Sundays, and feed them soup that tastes like now. I will take the sailboat out with a patient friend, and learn what the wind is trying to say. I will read novels in a hammock and fall asleep, mouth open, unflattering and free. I will learn how to sit across from a man I once loved, and tell him what time to pick up the box of winter coats, without yielding the floor of my spirit. I will age the way a coastline does, not trying to preserve one angle, but letting the water teach me my shape. I will forgive at the speed of truth, not pressure. Some nights will be heavy. Some mornings will be loud. I will light the green lamp anyway. I will stand at the sink and let the rain say what I cannot yet say. Later, when the urge to rage rises, as it always does, I will step outside and name 5 blue things. Hydrangea. A scrap of sky between moving clouds. The enamel bowl we use for popcorn. The one bird with the indigo head and the uncertain song. The last journal in the top right corner, cover scuffed by a life. Naming pulls me back from the edge to the porch where I can do something useful with my hands. There is a truth I wanted someone else to hand me, like extra bread. They couldn't. No one could. The truth we keep asking for at other people's doors is the one we bake ourselves. We learn the ratios. We knead. We wait while the yeast does what yeast does. We forgive the dense first loaf. We try again. We share what we make without apology for the size of the slices. Tonight I write on a fresh page, House Rules Addendum. If you need to cry, do it with your whole face. If you need to rest, do it before you break. If anyone brings codes into this kitchen, rinse them in the sink until all that's left is the thing they tried not to say. I tape the page inside the cupboard where the tea lives. It looks like it has always belonged there. It is late when I step onto the porch with a mug. The coastal air holds its salt like a confidence. Somewhere down the lane, a screen door opens and shuts, and the noise makes me think of mothers and daughters, and all the sentences we never finished because we were busy putting out dinner. I wish her good night. I wish the me who waited good night. I wish the hydrangeas good night, though they were never awake in the ways I have been. When I return to the study, I turn off the green lamp and stand for a moment in the kind of dark that trusts you. Forgiveness arrives shyly. It doesn't ask for a speech. It asks for a small step. I take it. I put my hand on the back of the chair, the one that does not wobble. I breathe in. I breathe out. I leave the door to the study open. And I walk down the hall toward a bed that holds only one body and all the room in the world for a life that is mine. A week after the mediator, the bungalow settles like a chest after a long cough. The rain turns light, then intermittent. By afternoon, the sun begins to do that forgiving thing it does to wood floors and old frames. I walk rooms without bracing. I touch thresholds the way you pat a dog you're teaching to trust your voice. The study door stays open all day. I do not count how many times my eyes find the green lamp. I stop waiting for a car in the drive as if dread were a guest who needs a place to put her coat. There is still grief, but it's honest now. It arrives like the tide instead of like a trap. I let it in. I let it out. On Wednesday, I drive to the landfill with a trunk full of nothing anyone will miss. Boxes that say, Xmas Napkins 2013 in her tidy hand. A bent wreath frame. 3 strands of lights that have learned to glow only in patches. Stubborn little constellations refusing to make a sky. The man at the gate waves me through with a joke about treasure inside trash. I don't look for treasure. I look for space. On the way back, I stop at the hardware store for a new mailbox flag, red and unapologetic. The old one was a tired pink that looked like it had been saying, maybe, for 20 years. The cashier gives me a sticker shaped like a hammer, and I put it on the inside cover of my thin notebook, like proof that I can build a life if I have to. At home, I put on work gloves and kneel by the hydrangeas to cut back the spent blooms. It feels like pruning regret without pretending it never flowered. Good job, I say to the bush, to my hands, to the woman who taught me to pinch suckers, to the woman who used to believe patience meant waiting quietly for the harm to tire itself. Late afternoon pushes light through the leaves and into the kitchen. I make soup the slow way. Bones and bay leaf. Onion that becomes itself by softening. I chop carrots stubbornly thick and don't apologize to the recipe. When the pot begins to whisper, I sit at the table with bills and a pen and the folder with my name. I write checks. I keep notes. Money is not love and not salvation. Today it is only what it is, a tool I use without apology, like a mop. A letter arrives in the new, bright mailbox. It's from the Lantern. The owner read my email and asked the staff. No records from that night beyond what they'd already shared, but enclosed is a handwritten note from a server named Paula. I was the one who wrote guest alone, extra bread, it says. I was 23. I remember because I brought you lemon slices without being asked, and you said, thank you, in a voice like you were handing me something I couldn't carry yet. I've thought of you more than any other table. I'm glad you're okay. I set the note in the shoebox with the letters we didn't send. One stranger's witness. A small square of paper that says, you did not imagine yourself. That night was real. Sometimes we need other people's sentences to finish our own. I take the soup off the stove before it can become a sermon. Dusk sets its quiet on the street. The neighbor's porch light clicks on. Moths audition for attention and get it because that's what light does. My phone buzzes with a text from my daughter. A photo of her kitchen window open to rain, a mug steaming on the sill. Trying your lemon water trick, she writes. I smile and send back a picture of my soup and the hydrangeas trimmed into honesty. No slogans. Just proof. After dinner, I go for a walk. The sea wears evening like a shawl, not heavy, just certain. At the end of the lane, an older couple is arguing gently about whether the cloud overhead looks like a spoon or a sail. They ask me to adjudicate. I say it's both, and we laugh because that is true of most things that matter. There is a bench ahead, the one I have chosen again and again because it does not ask me to explain myself. I sit. The sky begins that slow blue to deeper blue shift that feels like a breath you hold for neither fear nor pride, but because pausing is its own kind of prayer. Grief sits beside me but does not take over the armrest. We share it, like reasonable people on a train. I think about the coded words and the ways a family can turn a woman into a lighthouse they expect to keep shining no matter the storm. I think about the night I learned forgiveness is release, not theater, and how my body understood before my mind caught up. No more lifting what other people drop and calling it love. I think about my children, their different nods, the way we made a new air together at that small table with crumbs for courage. I think about my mother-in-law, her neat lists, and her hot coal, and I say, into the wind that tastes like her kitchen windowsill, we're okay. A gull drags a scrap of paper through the wet sand, and I wince because I am that person now, the one who cares about scraps. I stand and pick up what isn't mine, and throw it away because I live here. I am allowed to tend where I stand. Back at the house, the clock in the hall clears its throat and I answer, I know, because I do. Time is not an enemy. It's a broom, and I am learning to sweep in the direction of mercy. I open the study and turn on the green lamp, not for company, but for gratitude. The journals sit like tame animals. I take down the first one, June 1997, and the last, the scuffed blue on the top right from last spring. I hold them both and feel the weight measured out in her careful hand. I do not need to read them cover to cover anymore. I know their weather. I carry them to the desk and lay them side by side. Thank you, I say, and the quiet takes the words like they belong to it. Then I take out my thin notebook and turn to the list. What is true? I read each line as if it were water offered at just the right time. He cheated. They knew. They helped. I survived. I get to decide who I am in this family now. Boundaries are love with a spine. Forgiveness is letting go of the outcome. I can be loyal to myself and still be kind. I add one more. The last line is small, but it lights the page. I write, peace is a practice, not a prize. The practice looks like garbage bags and soup, and a bench and a lamp. It looks like my voice when I keep it low and still let it mean something. It looks like saying no without hearing myself as a stranger. It looks like standing at the sink and looking out at rain and letting it say the thing I can't quite yet, not because I am weak, but because translation takes time. A message pings from Mark's sister. A photo of her mother's garden, the one out by the farm road, late light settling on the rows like a good story. She would have loved today, she writes. I type back, she did. Then I surprise myself and add, I'm lighting the green lamp. She replies with a single seed emoji, and for once I allow it to mean only that. I close the window and let the room hold. On the shelf above the desk, the shoeboxes make their respectable little skyline. I do not reduce any of it to lessons. I let it be what it was and what it is. People did what they did. I did what I had to live. Now I am doing what I want to heal. The weather shifts inside me. Not a storm passing, but a season deciding to move on without asking whether anyone's jacket is handy. I am ready to be the kind of woman whose life is a porch light for her own return. It will not be perfect. Some days the hydrangeas will wilt and I'll forget to water them. Some days I will walk too far back into the house of my mind and open a door I don't need. That's okay. The rules are posted. The lamp works. The bench is where I left it. The sea will keep practicing. I turn off the light, stand in the doorway of the study, and listen to the house breathe. There is space. There is room for my full weight. There is that small, deep yes that rustles when you stop rehearsing and start living. I carry it with me down the hall like a plate steady in both hands, and I let the night take me without negotiation, already knowing which quiet things I will choose again when the morning arrives. The sea is practicing again. I leave the door open and let the sound move through the rooms like a kind teacher. There is soup in the fridge and a lemon on the counter and a green lamp that knows when to bloom. The journals rest without needing me. My thin notebook waits, pages clean enough to trust. I write a grocery list. I write a sentence I don't have to be brave to believe. Today is ordinary. I set the table for one and do not feel missing. I set an extra fork anyway, the way you keep a chair for whatever Grace decides to stop by without knocking. I water the hydrangeas. I touch the chipped edge of the enamel bowl and let it be chipped. I wipe the sink until it shines enough to reflect a face I recognize. On the walk to the bench, I pass the boy with the stones. He waves like he's known me longer than he has. I wave back like I plan to stay. Clouds idle, undecided. I let the undeciding happen without trying to name it. When I sit, I don't count gulls or make bargains with the wind. I listen. I let the tide tell the same truth it always tells, and pretend for a minute it's new. Somewhere, the woman I was is ordering extra bread, and thinking the waiter is kind. Somewhere, the woman I am is bringing home eucalyptus, and changing a deadbolt, and learning to say no without flinching. Both are real. Both are mine. I close my eyes. I picture a house with its study door open, and its kitchen warm, and its rules taped where anyone can see them. I picture the people who will come through it, and the ones who won't. I picture the weather I carry now, steady, with occasional showers clearing by evening. I get up when I'm ready. I walk home slowly, not to delay, but to practice. On the porch, I pause. I put my palm on the frame like a blessing and a promise. Inside, the clock clears its throat. I know, I say, smiling. Then I turn on the green lamp. I set down my keys. I breathe. And I begin again, exactly where I am.